Welcome to Dil Ki Awaaz listeners. Hope you all are having a wonderful morning. And Yamini, today's guest is a cognitive neuroscientist. And, she just started a podcast called Talk Brainy to Me. So I think we both fit in very nicely in this conversation. I think we'll do okay because, our program is Dil Ki Awaaz and we have to talk brainy to her today. So we'll
Yeah,
try our best.
not to
And but what I read about cognitive neuroscience is that there is a relationship between our brain and our psychology. Dil और दिमाग में एक a connection है. That's how we take decisions. So I am actually really excited to talk to our guest today and know more about the biology underlying our psychology. So Yamini, would you like to introduce her?
definitely.
Okay.
And आपने ठीक बोला, आज हमने दिल की नहीं सुननी, आज हमने दिमाग की सुननी.
बिल्कुल, yes.
So Dr. Radhika Gosavi is not only a PhD holder, but an entrepreneur, researcher, instructor, and a publication writer. Oh my God, Radhika, I'm impressed.
Thank
she's
you.
an she's an educational neuroscientist and visiting faculty member at IIT Mumbai at present. As a scientist and an educator, she's interested in exploring topics, questions, ideas, and stories impacting education, psychology, and neuroscience. She aims to bring researchers, educators, artists, and technology professionals together to build creative educational methods. Radhika is also passionate about supporting equitable learning and empowering students and teachers for a bright future. While Radhika was born in India, she grew up in San Francisco Bay Area, woohoo, where she resides now. So, Radhika, as Namrita mentioned, that you have this podcast called Talk Brainy to Me, which explores diverse connections between topics impacting education, technology, and how the brain learns. And so, this video interview podcast is the baby of interdisciplinary program in educational technology at IIT Mumbai. And you have. I mean, I'm going to ask you about that. So, how did you start this podcast, and what is the goal to achieve at the end of each episode?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and thanks for the great introduction. This podcast, is very much similar to the title of your show. It's Dil Ki Awaaz, and I started it for reasons that really came from my heart. When I was thinking about what I would do, I've been working at IIT Bombay now since January and was slated to come to India actually just as the second wave of the pandemic hit. So here I was in this interesting situation, working in India, but being in the United States. So I was really thinking about what I can do to help beyond just monetary measures. And so I kind of turned towards what I thought was inspiring, and that is listening to other people sharing their stories, talking about what they care about, and really trying to bridge topics. So, this podcast is really a baby of what I listen to when I listen to my heart, and that is seeking inspiration from various sources. And really, at the end of each episode, my goal is to inspire people to form these cross-disciplinary collaborations, because in each episode, of course, I, a scientist, am talking to someone else from a very seemingly different discipline, but we're really highlighting the commonalities and our common interests and really talking about subjects that we both care about from different perspectives. So my goal is really to be able to spark these collaborations across disciplines, as well as inspire people and, of course, provide positivity, which I think is really necessary in today's times.
Very nice.
Very true. And, that's a great way to go. And, Radhika, like we grew up in India, we did our education there, and, we based our education a lot on rote method, just learn and just give exam and be prepared for the exam, get whatever marks you can get, and then forget about the curriculum after. So that was how, we grew up with. And I see even now in India that's the case. And I think the competition to get into good institutions is killing the curiosity in kids in India. And even in the Bay Area now, it's not far behind. There is a lot of competition, there's a lot of pressure. And you've gone through that, and you're seeing both sides now. You're born and brought up here, but and as an Indian community, we do value education. That's in our
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
and we are wired for that. But as a student who's successfully completed her PhD, and what suggestion or what advice can you give to parents how better to navigate through this cutthroat environment, and also the kids, because you've seen
Yeah,
it all.
yeah. I mean, I think that is such an important question, and also such a large one. I will do my best to try to give my perspective on the situation. I have always been an academically inclined child.
Mm.
I liked to study my whole life. I pursued a career in academia and got my PhD. Having said that, that's not all I am. I'm not only a scientist. I am also a creative artist. I paint, I dance. My mother has a dance school in the Bay Area called Newport Folk Dance Academy for the last 20 plus years. I also care about social service. I do work with a nonprofit that I started a long time ago. So I believe that there's so many different facets to a person. First and foremost, I think in a child's formative years, he or she should be able to explore those different facets of themselves. And hopefully, the parents will provide support and encouragement for the child to explore those different facets. And I personally believe that that's really going to allow the child to figure out what he or she likes, and where there's passion and a drive to do something meaningful in your life, like find your own purpose, I think that's what's going to lead to success. And, of course, education is important. It's the underlying factor to so many different degrees of success all over the world. But having said that, not every child has to, go get a PhD or go get a doctorate of some sort. There are so many different ways of making an impact in the world. And I think everyone should think for themselves of, what their way is of contributing and what they like to do and what they like to what they find meaningful, and really go down that path. Again, I keep coming back to this. It's the title of your show is apt, Dil Ki Awaaz. That's exactly what you should follow as a student. And as a parent, allow the liberty of for your child to follow your heart, for them to figure it out. It takes time, um, and happens at different time points. So allow that flexibility to your child to navigate those situations as well. I guess that's what I would say. And provide the
Right.
opportunities, provide the exposure
Mm.
for them to be able to do that. We are very fortunate in the Bay Area that we have so many different ways of doing things and so many different opportunities available
Yes.
to us. People should definitely take advantage of all of those.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
what a
And
nice
each
answer. Yeah.
absolutely, and each child has different abilities. So the best way to go
Yes.
is explore. Not everybody
Yeah.
can be academic, or not everybody can is ready for the exam scene, or whatever. So
Yeah,
there are
absolutely.
ways to grow and learn. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Thank you.
these individual differences is what makes life interesting for all of us, right? Imagine if all of us were just the same.
Mm.
That would be boring for everyone
Absolutely.
involved.
Yes.
So yeah, and people should not be afraid that they like to do something else, or likewise the families or the parents or the friends, they should support um, each other.
Yes, you're very true. I mean, such an apt answer for especially the Bay Areans.
I know.
So I was reading
Yeah.
a quote by Deepak Chopra, and he says, "We want lifelong good health and an end to fearing the aging process. By combining the fruits of modern neuroscience and timeless wisdom, you can achieve these goals. That is what your brain is designed for. The key is realizing that you are the user of your brain." And here we're talking about neuroscience, right? You're a scientist, you hold a PhD. So, is there evidence in neuroscience that our brains are being reshaped by our digital information environment? And are today's students thinking and learning differently compared to the previous technological periods?
Yeah, that's again a big question that scientists are thinking about every single day. The landscape of our lives has changed so much in the last, say, decade with the advent of technology, of social media, and so many other things. So I think that's a really important question. I think kind of backing up and speaking to the quote in your initial question, our brain is incredibly adaptive
Hmm,
and it's constantly changing every single moment with every new piece of information
absolutely.
that's coming to us,
Correct.
right? In the neuroscience world, we call this brain plasticity or neuroplasticity.
Okay.
Oftentimes, you'll hear people say the brain is plastic. And that's what it means, that it has this ability to constantly change.
Yes.
There's evidence in neuroscience from all different perspectives about how our brain changes and adapts to situations, whether it's after an individual loses a limb and our brain kind of rewires to adjust to that, or after developing expertise of playing the violin for a number of years, our brain reshapes to kind of adapt
Mm,
to the different life experiences that we have. So with that in mind, technology has certainly reshaped the way that we think and the way that we learn.
mm,
Um, in relation to the subjects that I study, which is educational neuroscience, what's happening in our brain when we're learning.
Hmm,
mm,
I think that's really, really important to consider and think about because our brain is the organ doing the learning,
correct.
right? Our learning is happening in our brain. And so our brains are being reshaped every single day.
Correct.
And as we engage in the use of technology more and more, it's certainly um, coming into effect.
Wow. So
very
important.
true.
And,
Mm,
like you said, we're learning it every minute, every second, right? That's why they say a very interesting thing when I read somewhere that, we have a routine, right? Everybody follows a certain routine, just simple as taking a shower, right? And when we
mm,
take a shower, after the shower, you dry yourself in a certain way every single day without even thinking, right?
habit. Yeah,
You're the
habit.
same motion. So they say in order to keep your brain functioning well and kind of smart, you should change that pattern, not do the same pattern again. That
Mm,
way your mind is not just, it's basically doing without any thinking. Now you'll be thinking means, okay, let me
mm.
change this pattern. And that way your brain is going to wire in a different manner.
True, true. Yeah, you need to
Yeah, I mean,
change.
it's yeah, and your brain has the capacity, like I said, to adapt
Mm.
and to change situations. One day you may not have a towel to dry off, and you will be able to
True.
find a different solution.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
we're able to tackle situations that we may not ever think about in our wildest
very.
imaginations. It's really interesting. V.S. Ramachandran, who is a really eminent neuroscientist at UCSD, he always kind of talked about the brain in this really, really interesting way. I worked with him for 4 years, and it was just kind of sounded so magical the way he said it. He said,
Mm,
"Brain is a 3-pound mass of jelly that's capable of doing so much,
mm.
capable of thinking about infinity and." Even further capable of thinking about itself thinking.
Yeah.
And so it's
Very true.
this wide array of unimaginable capacity, which the
Very.
science I feel like has just started scratching the surface. There's
Mm.
so much more to discover.
Yeah, that is true. We just need to harness it, in the best possible way. That's so right. So, tell us about your non-profit organization beyond the book, Radhika. You started it some time back, and what made you start that? And what do you think is lacking in, Indian education that can be changed to empower the young kids in a more meaningful way? Because that's what you aimed. When you went to India, your aim was to, teach them in a very more holistic way. So, I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so kind of starting with why I started this organization called Beyond the Book. Growing up, I used to come to India often, every single year. My grandparents are here, close family is here. And my mother's side of the family is actually from Goa. And so every time I came to India, we would visit, Goa, and some of our relatives live in the villages of Goa and more rural areas. And every time I visited, I would hang out with my cousins or their friends. And like I said, I liked to study my whole life. So I was taken aback by the fact that not all of them enjoyed studying as much as I did. As a kid, I was like, why don't you like to study? I love to study. Studying is so fun. And so, and so I like looked into it more. My grandmother, I come from a family of academics and educators. And so my grandmother, who's an educator, and was, kind of in charge of the entire Bombay municipal area of school, she knew some people there. So she's like, let me take you to the schools and show you what it's about, right? I go to school in a very different part of the country and in the world. Schooling is very different here. And so I went there, and what I realized over time is that the kids there maybe didn't enjoy learning as much as I did, because maybe they weren't exposed to the different learning methods that I was exposed to, learning in all these different types of ways. And so with Beyond the Book, my goal is really to use various types of learning methods, primarily ones that are hands-on and interactive and multisensory by nature, to make kids curious, and really bring forth the fact that learning can happen everywhere around you, not just out of a book in a classroom.
Yes.
And so through the work, what I do is, through the donations that I get, I'm able to buy some supplies for the schools that I work with. And I conduct a week-long workshop with each school. So far, I have worked with governmental schools in the various kind of rural areas. And through these workshops, I teach the kids as well as the teachers about how to use these supplies, things like microscopes or learning games or, sports equipment. And we do activities adjacent to their curriculum, of course, because we don't want to take them off course, in which they're able to learn the same information in a different way. So, for example, when they're learning about a leaf or, and what leaves are comprised of, they, of course, learn about it in their book. But as an activity, we go outside, we get some leaves, we have them look at it under a microscope, draw what they look like, smell them, observe them closely. And so this way they're able to gather a lot more information about the same thing. And oftentimes this makes them more interested, it just makes them a little bit more excited. So that's the work I do and kind of the journey that I have taken with it.
That's really amazing, and we wish you the best with this, because you are kind of making the kids more curious about what life is around. Because we know we've read the books and we forget, that's the thing. So I think sometimes the visual is much more better in learning. I've seen,
Yes,
and
yes, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, providing this holistic perspective on education, kind of turning towards your next question about how we can better education, I think in India, but really around the world, is by thinking about what the purpose of education is. Why are we educating ourselves and others? Like, why should we even do this, right?
Absolutely.
I personally believe that the purpose is not to necessarily get good grades or get into the best college or get that top job at that high paying company. But I think personally the goal of education is to sculpt exemplary citizens of the world. And so if we really want to make the best citizens that we possibly can through education, then we need to provide that kind of content and really cultivate those abilities. And so I think that if we really think about why we're educating, what can we do to provide education, to make good people, to make good citizens of the world, I think that
Hmm.
would really change people's mindsets and change the various processes in India and around the world, and start this from an early age,
Absolutely. Yeah.
start thinking about it from early on in school, from primary school, from elementary
Hmm.
school. And I think that would change things everywhere.
You
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
Radhika, what you said right now is very important. Plus, I also feel that from the experience which I'm getting around myself right now, that education by itself is not just getting degrees and just having that in your resume, oh, I've got this. Emotional health is so important now, especially in this day and age. When money is given the most importance, right? And people do not understand that emotionally you have to be stable in order to have that good relations with each other, and understand then just, oh, I'm educated, I have an upper hand, or I'm much more educated, much more smarter than you. No, that does not count. And I know that this is, I'm seeing it, it's proving more and more wrong that education does not make you a better adult, a better human being. And it's just proving it for me, it's proving me wrong, that no, education is not very important, but yes, emotional well-being. And so many adult learners returning to school need to balance work, family, and other personal responsibilities, which can be challenging and stressful. We all know that. In our
Yes, very
information
much.
overloaded environment, feeling stressed out and overwhelmed seems more common today. So perhaps these emotional states can be hidden undercurrent impacting learners. It might be difficult for instructors to recognize and deal with this, especially in online environments. And we've all seen for the past year, this online education has been the only thing which is available to adults and kids.
Yeah.
What take do you have on this one? And what do you think now, because we're coming back to normal after pandemic, how can we as parents and how can children help each other or help themselves?
Yeah, again, such an important question. First and foremost, I agree. I think social and emotional well-being and processing is a very necessary part of learning. Actually, my next podcast episode next week is about this.
Oh,
And so I think it's critical, and I think this has really come to the forefront, as you mentioned, in these times with COVID. And so there's many things to consider. I think when we think about education and how we go about learning, social emotional learning is should not be just a unit tacked
Hmm.
on at the end of some lesson or at the end of the semester or something. I think it's really important for people to understand that learning itself is a social and emotional process
True.
that should be taken into consideration
Hmm.
at every step along the way of a learner's life, whether that learner is 5 years old or 50 years old. We're learning
Hmm.
throughout our life. So we really need to think about that, I think, as we go forth. Um, Now, how do we kind of move forward from the various curveballs that COVID has thrown at us, online education and all of this? From a social and emotional standpoint, I think all of us could use a little bit more empathy towards each other. And, as humans, empathizing is an ability that is actually found to be rooted in various types of neural circuitry, that there are various ways in which we are able to empathize or think about what each other's beliefs are and even mirror each other's emotions. Um, every from every level, from the brain to our psychology to the way we act. And so, if we just kind of think about each other's circumstances, empathize with each other a little bit more, I think that would certainly help. And as kids go back to school, I think, it's going to be really different. I know, for example, that there's some young children who started their school in online mode
Ah,
yeah.
and think that this is school. School is sitting in front of a computer. And so think about them going back to school, and what kind of an impact all this social activity is going to have on them, right? Or the fact that some kids may not be as typically functioning in that area as other kids. So I think we're just a little bit more empathetic or sensitive to each other's situations. That could really help us go a long way for starters.
Very nice.
Very true, Radhika. And, I was listening to your podcast with Dr. Amte, and they are well known humanitarians, both him and his wife. So, you're talking about we have to have empathy, definitely. But, how do you get empathy for globally, is the issue, because we live in silos, we are living in a bubble. If you talk about our Bay Area community, or so for that you have to have exposure, I think, of different cultures. And I have to really give say kudos to you, because you took this step, a huge step of giving up a career in SoCal, and then taking up this visiting assistant job at IIT, and doing work with uh, young kids in India. And really more power to women like you, young girls like
Thank you.
you. And you're
Thank
a
you.
great example for many people who want to follow you follow their brain, I'll say, not their heart, because that's where your decisions are coming from. So in the end, just tell us what you got out of this decision of just starting whatever this new venture and everything, and then we'll wind up.
Yeah, certainly. First of all, thank you for all those compliments. When I throughout my life, when I've really thought about what I want to do, my decision making has really been about what is the next best step for me? What do I feel is right in my career? So whether it's, following my brain or following my heart, I think I just do what I think makes sense, and what I value, and what drives me. And so, like I said at the beginning, I think following passions is the way to go. In terms of what I've learned from these new ventures, across the world, in India, which is where I am right now, actually, as we're doing this podcast, I'm in Mumbai. Is that there are so many different people across the world who have so many different stories to share, so many different experiences to bring to the table, so much knowledge, and if we just make an effort to open up our minds and to open up our hearts and really make an effort to listen to people, make an effort to go around the world and talk to people, perhaps work with someone around the world, or someone in another discipline,
Mm.
I think that it would really help all of us kind of get that perspective and move forward in life. Kind of the theme of my life, whether it's this podcast or, my career or my various interests or hobbies, has really been this idea that I love living at the cross sections of
Oh,
things, or at the edge of an intellectual ecosystem, if I may say so.
okay.
And I really feel that living in these really kind of niche areas or edges is
Mm,
really what helps us push our boundaries of knowledge,
mm,
and helps us discover new things, both
mm,
personally and professionally, and hopefully use that to make some sort of lasting impact in the world and really move forward. I think the most exciting things are happening at the edge of anything where there's new discoveries. And that's really, also the gist of being a scientist, is that you're trying to push the boundaries of human knowledge. So I guess in a nutshell, I would say, try to put yourself out there, try to learn with every opportunity you get, whether, it's saying hi to someone who's sitting alone at a restaurant who may not be as familiar with the surroundings, or traveling to a different part of the world to do some work. I think if we just open up our minds,
mm,
and our brains and our hearts, I think we can really form some long-lasting connections that will help make an impact.
Very well said, Radhika. Where can people find you in the end quickly?
So for people, you're welcome to visit my website, radhikagosavi.com. Please do check out our podcast, Talk Brainy to Me. It's up on YouTube and hopefully will also be up on other platforms shortly. And otherwise, feel free to email me at radhikagosavi.com. And I'm always happy to connect and find a time to chat.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Radhika. And I'm looking forward to the recent coming up episode with the Atul Kulkarni. He's an amazing actor, amazing actor. So
Thank you so much. I will be sure to share the link with you once it's
yeah.
out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good luck, Radhika, with your nonprofit, with everything you're doing. And you are a very, very sharp young woman. So good luck.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Yeah, thank you, Radhika. It was wonderful learning from you. And yeah, just wish you the best, and we'll follow you definitely on your podcasts and everything. Yeah, so take care and be safe.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation again.
Bye.
Bye.